What do you see the average retiree's day looking like there?
Sure.
What do you think a realistic budget is for a retired couple living on Ambergris?
So, it depends. There's two big factors that goes into that answer.
What is the biggest frustration for newcomers or things that people say, they're like, well, I tried to move down here, but screw that, I'm gone, back home for me.
I think the biggest thing that I've seen is
The other huge question, especially about Belize, is the healthcare question. It is not Belize's strong suit. So, is there a point at which you would say, this is the point at which you should not move here because you need, your health concerns might overtake that? Where do you draw that line with care in Belize? Hello, my name is Kalashian for Live and Invest Overseas, and today we are here talking about life on Ambergris Caye in Belize. So this is one of the Caribbean's most talked about expat havens. It has been a long-running favorite for, decades and decades now, and you hear a lot of things about this Shangri-La and how paradisiacal it is. It's so perfect and just beach and blue skies every day. But it's we all know that's not the reality. What is it like to actually live on one of these places? Not for a week, not for a weekend, but full time. So today I have with me Rachel Jensen. Thank you for joining us today. She has been living and working on Ambergris Caye, and I want to say for over a decade, but I don't want to age you out. So correct me.
Yeah, about 14 years, years now. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's crazy how time flies because I was living in Panama when you were living in Belize and it feels like a lifetime ago. But it's safe to say you are an insider. You have an excellent insider perspective and lots of, I'm sure, tips and insights to share with listeners who might be Belize curious. So tell us just a little bit about yourself, what brought you to Belize, how you got started there.
Of course. So my first time in Belize, it was 2012, and I was working with a real estate developer that was based in Nicaragua. It was really supposed to be an internship with the real estate developer, a 3-month stint. I was there. I decided to stay with the company long term. So a couple of months after that 3-month stint ended, stayed with the company. They sent me to Belize. They were having an event in Belize, said, we need some help. If you don't mind just going down. I never even heard of Belize in 2012. So I Googled, pulled up Google, typed in Google, Belize, Ambergris Caye, went to images. I'm like, ooh, this looks beautiful. I could do this. I'm looking at pictures of the hotel that I was going to stay in, which was really, fairly run down, but the pictures made it look stunning. So I get there and I just loved it. Right. It just felt so easy. You think about when you go to a Caribbean destination, everyone's speaking English, the Caribbean, the palm trees, it just felt easy. We got around by golf cart. Everyone was so friendly. And that was something that really stuck with me. So when I went back to Nicaragua, I was living in Nicaragua full time. I kept thinking about Belize, and they continued to talk about needing somebody there on the ground. And so finally I rose my hand. I said, if you really need somebody, I'll do it. I'll bite the bullet. I'll move to Belize. And ultimately it became home. And it has been home since 2012. And a lot of it, I think, has to do with the people who are here, right? It's really about the community that you build when you're in another destination, another country. Mm-hmm. And the people here have been truly incredible. But Belize, I'm from New York originally. And so Belize is a world apart from New York. So
total opposite.
Total opposite. Everything that you think is normal about living in New York, the fast pace, the crazy work hours, everything. It was just the complete opposite here, right? I remember in 2012, it was a very different time on the islands. Internet was very unstable. We did not have Skype. WhatsApp didn't exist at that point. A majority of the expats who lived here were retirees who truly were disconnected from life in the States. Sure, maybe they called their family every now and again to check in, and but that was going to cost them $5 a minute. So they weren't necessarily overly doing it with the calls, but they were just really enjoying life here. And so my introduction to Belize was integrating with the older expat community and truly, and the locals, right? This is a place where everybody coexists and all hangs out together. And I think that was one of the things that really stuck with me, was just how easy it felt to integrate in and have a community around me. Where I was living before, I just felt a lot more isolated in Nicaragua. And some of it might have been due to language. I knew Spanish, right? But there's something that was just so different about me and the Nicaraguan culture. So it was pretty neat to come here and actually feel like, oh, great, I can get involved with things. I can start clubs. I can join the ladies for the book club if I want to. We can do Rotaract, we can do the Lions Club, and just having a life versus just living in another country, I think was a big reason for staying here.
Yeah, that's a really important distinction. Just living in a place and having a life in a place. It may seem like you're saying the same thing, but I think anybody who's done this before really gets that cannot be the case. You can live in a place and have absolutely nothing to do with it. You could be
Yep.
living anywhere. So, talking about the island lifestyle. So, I mean, clearly you were kind of, it was love at first sight for you. You were pretty enchanted right from the get-go. And I think that's what a lot of people experience, especially because they're doing it from a fantasy point of view. So they're thinking island life, that means cocktails in a hammock. It's always sunset, right? It's always sunset all the time.
Always.
The waters are always stunningly clear. But, give us the reality. So what does a normal day look like for you living as a normal person who has a job on Ambergris Caye? And I mean, to be fair, a lot of the people watching this may be looking to retire there, not have a job there. So I guess maybe what do you see the average retiree's day looking like there?
Sure. So, I can tell you it can be 5 o'clock every single day if you want it to be, right? And I think that's the beautiful part about life here in Belize is you can truly make it what you want it to be. If your dream is to wake up with a margarita in hand and go to bed with a margarita in hand, you can absolutely do that and nobody's judging you. If you want to have a more active life, if you want to be diving in the morning, catching up with friends for lunch in the afternoon, playing pickleball, at sunset, you can absolutely be doing that too. And I think the beautiful part about this country is that it's small. Population-wise, Belize is about 400,000 people. On the island here, we're at about 30,000 people. And so the island Ambergris Caye is one of the biggest expat destinations. Mm-hmm. So if there's something that is not currently here, or if you have a hobby or interest that is not currently actively practiced, you can start it up. Start it up, and I'm sure you'll find people to join. I know we just had a lady open a Pilates studio, because there were no Pilates studios here. So she got trained and is in the process now of building that Pilates studio up. So things like that are absolutely possible. If you're an entrepreneur, this is your haven here. If you're not an entrepreneur, you'll still find plenty of things to do. So it's really what you want it to be and how you foresee your retirement being. However, I will absolutely recommend to find activities, to find things to do, find friends, and finding and meeting people here I found is one of the easiest things to do. There's our life. It seems like life happens on Facebook in Belize. It's the funniest thing because I'm not really a social media person. I have it for business, but life happens in these Facebook groups. There's the Ambergris Expats page. There's the page that likes to go play pickleball. There's the page that wants to go play tennis. There's the page that dives together, the page that hikes together. And so getting involved with that, if you want that active lifestyle, is absolutely something to do. Now, I know a handful of retirees or people who've moved down with the intent of retiring. And after a year of enjoying, the beach life, they're now twiddling their thumbs in the hammock and looking for something to do. One of our clients, he's been here a year and a half, he and his wife, and they just started a project management company and an inspection company, because there are only 2 inspectors here, home inspectors here on the island of Ambergris Caye, and they're busy most of the time, right? So if you want to get an inspection on your home, you have to wait a couple of weeks. And so for something that was a little bit more urgent, now Jesse can step in. So we do find that too, where people say, nah, I thought I wanted to retire, but let me do something to spend a little bit of time. I don't need to get rich from it. I don't need to make tons of money. For him, for Jesse's like, I just wanted to cover my bar tabs, my beer tabs, right? He loves his land shark, right? So I just wanted to cover my beer tabs and I'm good. And so you can do that too, play around with that, dabble around with it, just depending on ultimately.
Yeah, I hear that so much from so many expats, even here in Europe. They end up buying, land in Italy or southern France, and they're like, oh, it has olive trees and they produce, or it has grapevines and they produce. Let's start our own olive oil or wine. And it's not necessarily that you're trying to make a career. It's just something fun to do. It ties you into the local community and maybe makes a few bucks or some free wine or free olive oil.
Yeah, not bad. Something that you use on a regular basis.
So yeah, it sounds like this is a really thriving community. What do you think the number one adjustment would be for the typical North American coming here? Because it does seem like it's very active, but I know that it's also very laid back. So how do you match those?
Oh, entirely going slow. It's taking a break, pumping the brakes and saying, all right, let me just slow down on things. And we see this all the time. People are coming in so excited, and it's great to have that excitement. Just make sure you're able to maintain that excitement over the next year as you're buckling up and getting ready for things to get accomplished. It's going to take time. Even buying property here takes time. We had a fellow who recently just purchased land, and before he even closed on the property, he's like, all right, introduce me to the architects. We introduced him to 3. 2 took like I don't know, 3, 4, 5 days to respond to him. The other one was really good initially, but then fell off, a little bit, didn't respond for a week or so. And so he's like, all right. And he's from Europe originally. He's from Eastern Europe. And he's like, all right, I just need this now. I said, no, you don't need this now. I said, what you need to do is just calm down, right? Be patient. Things will all fall into place. You haven't even closed on the property. You don't even have documentation that you own it. So we can't even do much.
You can't even do anything.
Plans, right? You start your plans, but that's going to take some time for the architects anyway. So if you just realize, do that mental reset that, all right, take a deep breath. Follow-up is essential. It's absolutely key in anything that you do here. You can submit your plans, you can submit your title paperwork, you can submit your residency paperwork, and you have to be diligent about following up. I mean, even my architect, I'm messaging him every 3 days. Hey, just checking in. You just have to do it. And that's how it is. And so I think that's a good reality check for people when they're coming down to the Caribbean here to relocate and actually live.
Yeah, that's a great point. All right. So practical realities, again, one of the top questions we get is about the cost of living, because famously, Belize is quite an affordable place to live, but Ambergris isn't necessarily Belize. There are some differences. So what's the number one shock, like sticker value or sticker shock that people have when they move down to Belize?
Oh gosh, any imported items, right? And this is true for the entire country, but because we live on the Keys here, anything that's imported to the country is then further shipped out to the islands here. So anything on Ambergris Caye typically is going to cost more than it does on the mainland. However, we have the most variety here on the island, on Ambergris Caye. This is where we have the biggest expats, is the biggest tourism destination, one of the bigger populations in the country. So we tend to get a lot of imported items. So what are imported items? A tub of pretzels. So my mom was here visiting. This was in November, a few months ago. And my son loves pretzels. He loves pretzels. And so the only ones that my mom could find at the store was this big tub of pretzels. It wasn't actually even terribly big. It's like a tub, right?
Yeah.
And it was 66 Belize dollars. 66 Belize dollars. So 33 US dollars for pretzels. And I was like, Mom, you did not have to get those. She goes, well, it's nice because it has the screw top and then you could put more snacks in after this. And I'm like, no, we don't need to spend $33 on a screw top jar. But regardless,
on a snack tub.
Yes, yes. But, it's things like that. And then afterwards, like she looked at her bill, she goes, that was a really expensive trip, right? They went to go get some White Claws and it was, I don't know, $3, $4 a can. They don't give you a discount if you're buying 12, right? So if it's $4 a can at 12, you're at $50 US for a pack of White Claw, which probably in the States costs you $18 US. So anything that's imported is going to cost more. However, I found that the day-to-day living is substantially less than in the United States. And if you learn to live locally, if you're eating, instead of the Doritos brand, you're eating the local brand, Doritos will cost you $8 US a bag compared to the local brand, which is very similar, which will cost you $2 US a bag. So a lot of it is just shopping around, getting to know the shop owners, because they'll also start to give you discounts, random discounts. When they get to be like, oh, 10% off for you, or they'll say, this is my favorite. With your discount, it's, right? So they'll ring it up. And then randomly they'll do some calculations on their calculator. And then, for you, it's, with your discount, it's this. So it happens. But I mean, anything imported, just expect it to have a crazy price tag associated with it.
Yeah. The thing I always remember people complaining about was peanut butter, because you go down and the peanut butter has to be imported. Nobody's making peanut butter locally. And they were like $8 a tub, $12. I mean, a jar, like a normal jar, $8 a jar, $12 a jar. How can you say it's affordable to live in Belize? Well, that's one imported item, wines, again, any alcohol that's imported is going to cost a lot. So it pays to drink local.
Yeah. Drink the coconut rum. We have some coming out of here, but for sure, anything imported will have the hefty price tag.
So what do you think a realistic budget is for a retired couple living on Ambergris?
So, it depends. There's two big factors that goes into that answer. One is, do you own your property? If you do, right, then you're not going to have that monthly rent. And two is, do you own your vehicle? So if you need a golf cart or a mode of transportation, then that's going to be a bulk payment up front, but then you're not going to have the ongoing costs of transportation. So I would say if you own both, if you own your golf cart and you own your property, $3,000 to $4,000 US, $2,500 to $4,000 US to give you flexibility to do things, right? To go diving once a week, to go eat out a couple of times a week. It gives you that sort of flexibility. Now you can live like a tourist if you want, and you can go to the tourist restaurants and easily spend $100 per person on a meal with drinks, appetizers, food. But most of the time, and you'll start to see that expats are saving that for special occasions. We know where to go to get the dinner for $5 Belize, right? Yeah. And so that's what we do most of the time. But I'd say 2,500 to 4,000 US comfortably for a couple to truly enjoy life here on the island. Mm-hmm. Now, if you don't own a vehicle or you're renting, if you're renting one bedroom, just typically expect that to be about 900 to 1,000 US. If a 2-bedroom, you're typically going to be looking at about 15 to 1,800 US per month for rentals. And then vehicle. So on the islands here, we primarily get around by golf cart. Golf carts are our primary mode of transportation. However, if you want to long-term rent a golf cart, it's like it's going to be a lease payment equivalent to what you would pay for like the latest Range Rover. It's anywhere from like 600 to 800 US per month for your golf cart. And it depends on the season. High season, they're going to be jacking that price up. You get to know the golf cart owners. They'll start negotiating deals for you. But typically, because they can rent that golf cart out for $80 a day, or maybe $60 a day, we'll say US, right? So if they're doing the calculations, it doesn't even make sense for them to long-term rent. But transportation tends to be one of the more expensive things here on the island.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is it does actually pay to own your own golf cart.
Oh, for sure. Well, and for a long time. So for a long time, I long-term rented my golf cart because we're on an island. Like golf carts are made for golf courses. However, it's our primary mode of transportation here. So
there is a lot of
yes, there's a lot of upkeep that you need to do with them. And so for 3 or 4 years, I long-term rented because whenever there was an issue, the golf cart company would come, they would just replace the cart. I'd be fine, good to go the next day, within an hour. When you have your own cart, just like your own car, you have to take it to the shop. Maybe you have to go rent a cart, and it just seemed like more of a pain. But then I started to do the math after 4 years of renting, and I was like, I could have bought a few golf carts by now.
Oh my gosh! Oh, wow.
by the time your monthly payments, it adds up, right? So purchase the golf cart, and you just have to get it serviced regularly, just like you would a car. You get an oil change, you get it washed down every couple of months. But especially here on the Keys, it's sea salt, right? So everything corrodes. So you just have to make sure you're maintaining your items properly.
Well, that's a great tip, because I was going to say, oh, what a good insight to rent instead of buy. But no, it's good that you did the math.
Oh yeah. Could have gotten a few cards by then.
Okay.
I could have been renting them out.
Right, exactly. You could have a fleet, be making money off of it. All right. So we always want to keep things real. There are always trade-offs, that no place is ever perfect. What is the biggest frustration for newcomers, or things that people say, they're like, well, I tried to move down here, but screw that, I'm gone, back home for me.
I think the biggest thing that I've seen is the bureaucracy. So again, small country, 400,000, politicians all seem to be related to each other, right? Like it's very much so a relationship-based country here. So if you're coming in too strong, you need things too immediately, you don't have enough patience, this place is going to drive you absolutely crazy. Really and truly absolutely crazy. Even just preparing your paperwork for residency, for your work permit, you're going to send everything, you're going to give them everything that they asked for. And then they'll be like, oh, but you didn't give us this receipt from 3 years ago. And you're like, well, what is that for? That was never on the list. I'm like, oh, well, we just added it. Right. So, well, then maybe you should add it to the printout that you give to us when we come to see you with what we need to bring. But regardless, it's just having that patience, understanding, be over prepared for anything that you're doing that involves the government, and just understand things take time, and check in is absolutely needed. But the people that I've seen not do well here are the people who leave fairly quickly after getting here are the people who can't just sit back and relax, and who aren't too keen on building relationships with the locals.
Okay, good to know. So the other huge question, especially about Belize, is the healthcare question. It is not Belize's strong suit. So, is there a point at which you would say, this is the point at which you should not move here because you need, your health concerns might overtake that? Where do you draw that line with care in Belize?
It depends on the person. So healthcare is getting better, right? It's not what it was 10 years ago. It's much better than it was. However, it's not like it is in other places like Merida, or as in developed countries like the States. Again, it's a 400,000 person population. Mm-hmm. And so we don't have tons of specialists, right? We may have 1 or 2 specialists for the entire country that's servicing the entire country. So it just depends specifically on the elements that you have and what your considerations are. Here, they can do, especially in the islands, they can cover most basic things. Have a heart attack? Fine, they can do that. Pregnant? Want to have your child? Fine, no problem. But anything that is above and beyond like a basic
right,
thing,
a kind of commonplace thing.
Yeah, exactly. You're probably going to be going either to Belize City. They have, good healthcare in Belize City, or a lot of expats tend to go to Merida, which is in Mexico. So it's about a 5-hour drive from the border of Belize to Merida in Mexico. They have phenomenal healthcare there. It's a fraction of the price compared to the States, even cheaper than here in Belize. And so we do tend to see that people are going there for anything serious. I mean, I know people who've had, cancer, and they're going through radiation here in Belize, not on the island, but there are a couple of facilities in the country of Belize where they're able to do that. We have a friend who unfortunately was diagnosed with lupus, and she's able to do everything in Belize City. Good. So there's a lot of good care there. A private hospital already exists here on Ambergris Caye. They have a handful of clinics, and now a public hospital is under construction. So that they're expecting that in the next year to be completed and ready for use.
Excellent. Okay, so the other big downside to Belize, unfortunately, I have to get through the downsides right now, is the weather, not the weather, but the hurricane season, the potential for really damaging natural disasters. How has that affected you? I mean, you've been living there a long time. There have been many hurricanes that have made fall on Belize since then. So how has it affected you? What would you say to somebody who's concerned about that and thinking about living here?
So, luckily we're not in the primary hurricane belt. A lot of times the storms are going to be bypassing Mexico and going to Cuba, going to Jamaica, going up to Mexico, going up to Texas or Florida. And so we're lucky enough that we don't see a majority of the storms that other places in the Caribbean see. However, we have seen destructive storms here, so we can't negate it at all. Right. And so I think the biggest thing when you're moving here and relocating here is understanding that it could be a reality. If you're purchasing property, looking for property that is built to hurricane standards, you're going to find many properties along the coast over here, and many that have been existing and up and operating for decades, right? Decades have withstood many hurricanes. And so it's just because they've been built to those standards. And so when you're buying a property that is on the coast, then you do want to make sure that it's built properly. You have hurricane shutters, you're able to prepare. The nice thing in a way about hurricanes is we're able to detect when it's coming. So there's ample time, 3-4 days to truly prepare for a storm. And I've been here for a couple of them where we knew a storm was coming. You'll see plywood sheets are going to be for sale everywhere because they're using that to board up their homes. Yeah. Everything will be boarded up. Typically there's like a curfew, all right, we're expecting that the storm's going to come in at this time. Curfew is going to start around this time and then will end around this time. And the community really comes together though. So luckily we had a scare a couple years ago around the July 4th time. And so they were saying, oh, it's going to be a 2, it's going to be a 3, everyone's getting boarded up. And so we live on the coast, but I have a condo in town it's like a bunker. I mean, truly like a bunker. It's concrete, has the hurricane windows, the whole thing. So we went to the condo. We had 3 dogs. Our little baby at the time was 8 months old. So we took everything and we're waiting for the storm. And finally we just got late. We went to bed and woke up and nothing. There was no rain. There was no, there was nothing. And so the storm bypassed Belize and went right up to Mexico, to the Yucatan area. So again, you just got to be prepared. You realize it's a reality. You have plenty of time to get off the island, plenty of time to have alternative plans, but you just have to be prepared.
All right, great. Thank you for that. I know that's something that's big on people's minds. All right, so we're going to do a little rapid fire lightning round for finishing things off. So 1 to 5 word answers. First thing that comes to your mind, best thing about living in Ambergris Caye?
Simplicity.
Biggest surprise about moving there?
How slow things are.
Is there a best month of the year, or are they all the same?
I love September. It's quieter. It's considered a slow season, but it is a little hotter, but it's September celebration. So Independence Day month, and everything is just a festival.
Awesome.
Events happening.
Biggest frustration on the island?
How slow things are.
Favorite local restaurant?
Oh, there's a pupusa place. I don't know the name, but a pupusa place on Middle Street. Delicious.
Something tourists never discover or rarely find because it's an insider thing.
Oh, that's a really good question. Like location? Like
anything.
Okay, there's an eco museum up north that hasn't really been publicized. I think that's a really neat little spot. And I think the local food, a lot of times people are scared to eat at little local delis here, but you have some of the best cuisine for affordably that I would absolutely recommend to anyone.
Excellent.
So that was a lot more than a lot more words there, but
no worries. No, great advice. And one thing that you wish you had known before you moved there, or before you visited, I guess, for the first time.
I'm glad I actually didn't know too much. Some people go into analysis paralysis and go crazy and think that they know everything by the time they get here, and they just completely overestimate things. I was actually okay with how it was. It was like a slow crawl into Belize, but I mean, I think for anybody listening, it would be just really understanding how slow things are. That is, again, the biggest frustration that we see, but I think been all right, not good over here.
Not good, right? All right. So if somebody is watching out there and is Belize curious, but a little nervous, what would you tell them?
Just do it. The worst, like truly, just do it. Like Nike. The worst case scenario is that it doesn't work out and you can move back
and
home.
You go back home. Yeah.
Yeah. Go back home. You can try a different country, something along those lines, but just do it because people get into the analysis paralysis stage. We have people who are inquiring about Belize real estate 10 years ago, and now they're just starting to do something like, oh, I realize
how much
where I want to be. How much
higher are the prices now? Right.
Insane.
Exactly.
Insane. Yep.
Yeah, no, that's great advice because we always say ready, fire, aim. You know, you can spend forever aiming, just do it. The number one thing that I have heard from expats over the years, their number one regret, I say, what would be the thing you would tell yourself before you moved? What would you wish you had redone? Their answer is always, I wish we'd done it sooner. My only regret is that we took too long to do it. I wish we'd done it sooner. So excellent parting words. Thank you so much, Rachel, for joining us today. And we will come back to Rachel again soon for more from Ambergris Caye.
Awesome. Thank you, Kat. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.